There used to be two mainline routes into Devon and Cornwall. Beeching acts one of them, but how did he decide which one to cut?
I'll be looking at the rivalry between the two lines from Exeter to Plymouth and meeting the railway buffs who still love the old closed route. I'm going to explore what's happening now, and I'll be asking, could Beeching's biggest decision in the southwest eventually be reversed?
There is quite a strong possibility that the line from Tavistock westwards to link up with Beer Alston and Plymouth could be reopened.
There was a bit of an obstacle for the Victorians when they built the railways in Devon. It's called Dartmoor, 400 square miles and rising to over 2,000 feet above sea level. They had to decide whether or not to build inland, building bridges and tunnels, or go round to the south along the coast. In the end, they did both. But the route we now know and love is Brunel's coastal route.
I'm on a journey of discovery. For me, the route through Devon is really important. I live in Cornwall, and it's crucial for me to be connected by rail to the rest of the country.
This is arguably one of the most beautiful stretches of railway in the country. It's the start of the southwest. But I'm actually fortunate enough, I commute in and out of Cornwall on this railway, and it is absolutely gorgeous.
This was the old Great Western Railway's route into the southwest. At the age of only 27, Isambard King de Brunel was appointed chief engineer to GWR with a brief to build this line. GWR penetrated the southwest peninsula for the very first time in 1846, reaching Newton Abbot. Within 3 years, you could travel by train all the way from London to Plymouth. I met up with Peter Kay at Dawlish. He's written a history of this part of the track.
Okay, Peter, why did Brunel choose this route for the railway?
Well, he was left with a choice between several routes, all of which had difficulties. Secondly, he wanted to serve the maximum population on the way, which meant going through Dawlish and Teignmouth. Right. And thirdly, he had convinced himself that if he just built a few breakwaters, the beach sand would gather up so much that the waves would never touch his sea wall.
Meanwhile, by 1881, the London and South Western Railways had their eye on reaching Plymouth too. Their Waterloo to Exeter line had already reached Oakhampton and Lidford, committing them to the challenging terrain of Dartmoor. They had a huge incentive, the chance to go head-to-head with GWR for all the lucrative southwest traffic. A stretch of the old inland route, renamed Southern Railways in the 1920s, runs 10 miles inland from Plymouth to Beer Alston. Who better to travel with than veteran railwayman Bernard Mills? Bernard's lived and breathed railways all his life, and he's got oodles of pictures that keep the southern route very much alive. He's got one particular favourite.
Of the 150,000 pictures I've taken, I probably put it at number 1. And that was the first time we'd had a steam engine at Beer Alston in 43 years. And when it came back, 20 to 10 in the morning at Tamerton, with just wonderful spring light, an incoming tide, no wind, and the absolute mirror image reflection. I'd planned it. Just a combination of light, luck, and God saying, yes, you will have this one for a change.
Explain to me the rivalry between the London South Western and the Great Western. Why were they rivals?
Because they were competing for the same business. One ran from Paddington, one ran from Waterloo. They had different routes to the west. They were competing for the Exeter traffic. They were competing for the Plymouth traffic. And they were also, as events unfolded, competing for the holiday traffic. But it was basically the transatlantic traffic and the hurry to get from New York to London. By stopping off at Plymouth and getting on a train, you could save a day. And don't forget, in the days before aeroplanes and motorways, that was a great saving. The competitions really hotted up at the turn of the century when, by agreement between the two companies, the Great Western took the mail The South Western took the passengers.
That early competition continued for many years, through nationalisation and later amalgamation, when the railways were lumped into regions. Eventually, all lines west of Exeter became part of the Western region, including the inland route to Plymouth. So now, old rivals work side by side in the newly formed region.
You're a Western man, but you spent part of your time working with Southern men in some of the stations you were at.
Yeah.
How did they treat you?
Friendly, but suspicious, I suppose. That's one way of putting it. There was certainly a very mutual admiration, but one was Great Western and one was Southern. We did things our way, and when the Western took over the whole thing, within a decade they closed most of it.
Even now, 40 years on, there's a suspicion that decisions made after amalgamation favoured GWR over Southern. If you jump off at Beer Ferris, railway nut Chris Groves has his very own way of keeping this line's history alive and kicking.
Hello, hi, Chris.
Hi there, yes, come on up, Dick.
Thank you very much.
He's the proud owner of a full-size railway set, all working parts coming from his favourite railway company.
Right, welcome to our emporium at the Tamar Bell.
It's awesome. What have we got here?
This is a working, breathing London South Western signal box.
You're a Southern man then?
I am indeed a Southern man, yeah.
So it's different from the Western one?
It's very different from the Western, yeah, because the main difference, of course, is the signals themselves. The Great Western signals drop down and the Southern signals go upwards.
But not for much longer.
There's never been a doomsday book of British Railways like this, and if the government approves, today's report will shape the future of the system.
By 1961, it was crunch time for the railways. British Rail was losing £140 million a year, so the Conservative government brought in a man to make the railways pay. Dr. Richard Beeching announced his plans in 1963.
I think the plan is right. All the proposals in it are directed towards making the railways do those things that they can do best and stopping them doing those things that they're no longer well suited to do. I think there's no sensible alternative.
Despite widespread opposition, what became known as Beeching's Act went ahead. In all, more than 2,000 stations and 67,000 railway jobs got the chop, with rural areas and branch lines most affected.
Holiday resorts in the West Country share the fate of many market towns. No station, no passenger trains. Make no mistake, this is going to be a big upheaval for Britain, and particularly for the men of British Railways.
There we go, it's very easy, just use the momentum.
How do you justify having one of these?
Well, every railway should have one, shouldn't they?
I don't see any brakes, Chris.
Oh, I got the brake. I got the
You're
brake.
ignoring me. Whoa, where are we? That was hard work, actually. Did I hear tea mentioned?
Yeah, come on over.
This is an original Beeching's report, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah, as published at the time by HMSO.
So it's a collectible item now?
It is, yes.
OK, show me the stations that were proposed for chopping.
Well, if we look to the list at the back here, we can clearly see stations proposed for closure: Beer Alston, Beer Ferrers, two other stations on the line, Brentor and Bridestow.
That's only the Bs?
That's only the Bs. And of course we've got the maps as well to go with the closure proposals. If we look at the withdrawal of railway passenger services in the UK, if we look to the southwest,
Yep.
we can see all the black is proposed for closure. The Plymouth to Oakhampton line there, and all the withered arm in the North Cornwall area.
So all the area goes, all this goes completely?
Yep.
Yeah, and there's a couple of little stretches that don't go anywhere?
One to Oakhampton, one to Barnstable. Of course, Oakhampton subsequently shut, and Barnstable still runs today.
But hold on, we're up here somewhere in the middle of this black zone.
We're up here. Beer Alston is the junction there on the black zone, so you'll see that this section of the line was never actually proposed for closure because they couldn't provide replacement bus services direct to Plymouth.
So Beeching thought it was a good idea to get rid of it, but because there was no alternative, it stayed open?
That's correct.
Oh, because we got a little bit of the black that survived.
Yep.
But why did the inland route have to go? Why not Brunel's route? The reason was simple. The coastal route served a bigger population and catered for holiday traffic. Sheer economics. So, despite shocked responses and nationwide protests, within 10 years, 4,000 miles of railways were cut from the network. Tracks were dismantled, grass grew over once pristine verges, and railway bridges were blown up. The cuts included the main line across the moors, causing sorrow and anger at the time, and nostalgia ever since. But what about the passengers who knew and loved this line?
Oh, hello.
Lovely to meet you.
And you
Lovely
too,
to see you.
yes.
Helen Harris was a Southern regular in its heyday. I caught up with her at Brentor Station, right in the middle of the Ack section of the line. It's been beautifully restored as a bed and breakfast.
Is this how you remember the station last time you were here?
Not at all, no. I must say I've not been down here since the railways closed.
But what do people think of Beeching's report and his decision to cut all the...
It wasn't very popular at all, really, because so many people out in the country who perhaps had a quiet station near them that they could get onto and then connect up with the main lines. Of course, they were then right out in the cold. I mean, they were quite isolated unless they had cars.
When Beeching decided he was going to close down these rail links, what did people do about it? You know, they just take it lying down?
I mean, some people did protest. I mean, you see people protesting these days. They protest about post offices closing. But, you know, it still goes on usually. You can't really stop them.
So people were resigned to the closures?
Well, they had to be, really. It was a government decision.
So, Helen, how did you fall in love with the railways? Is it not unusual for a lady to be a railway enthusiast?
I can't see why you should think that. It's rather sexist, really, isn't it?
Oh, well, it is a little bit. But having said that, is it not unusual?
Well, I suppose I've had to cover railways in books that I've written, the Industrial Archaeology of Dartmoor and other places. But I think from childhood I was always interested in trains because, you know, one saw trains much more in those days. And it was always fun to go and see trains go under a railway bridge when you were very small. And of course I know, I mean, much to my father's inconvenience, sometimes if you were in the car, you know, and you came to a level crossing, you'd have to stop because the train was coming. But you know, if you were sitting in the back, you would think, oh goody, you know, see the train go through.
Can you ever see these links coming through this way again?
There is quite a strong possibility that the line from Tavistock westwards to link up with Bear Alston and the Tamar Valley line into Plymouth. That one could be reopened. People are pressing for that because a lot of the structure is still there and in good condition. Viaducts and bridges, it's very well built.
In fact, there is a plan to do just that, to take the old spur from Beer Alston about 6 miles on to Tavistock, which has had no railway connection for the last 40 years. The viaduct's still owned by what's left of British Rail, and the land and all the bits of railway here are owned by local farmers and local landowners. It's quite interesting. We're 215 miles from Waterloo, so we're in the wilderness. Re-establishing this railway and buying all the land, putting it together and building would be a monumental task. Funnily enough, it's not the government or Network Rail that this plan comes from, it's a development company. The Kilbride Group is proposing to build a rail link from Tavistock to Beer Alston, reconnecting it to Plymouth.
Well, about 20%. Where exactly?
There's already a housing target for Tavistock, and Kilbride are proposing extra houses on top of that target to fund the railway.
If we have 750 new houses here, surely that's going to change the character of Tavistock completely?
I think it's fair to say that anyone seeing 750 new houses in their community is going to be affected by this, and we totally understand that. And we've spent a long time with lots of the residents, lots of the community groups, getting their views on how the project should be carried out to make sure that it is going to be blended in with the town. The 750 houses look like they're going to be allocated to Tavistock anyway, so our argument is that if that's going to happen, let's make absolutely sure that the infrastructure is being provided as well.
If the railway makes such sense, would it be viable without the houses?
No, because the cost of the capital expenditure for the rail has to be funded somehow. So there has to be this level of development in order to fund that rail infrastructure.
Of course, if you want to provide community rail, it helps to have a community that wants a railway. Tavistock Town Councillor Mike Harper shared his personal views with me.
Obviously it still exists, but the railway itself comes all the way around.
All the way around and down to there.
OK, and we're talking about private money to build an infrastructure and give you a railway. That's got to be great, hasn't it?
Yeah, but nothing actually comes for free, does it? There's always ties in with the private money that's coming in. The guys that are building it have got to make a profit out of it, and the payback on this one is the 750 or 500 extra houses on the development, which is what we're fighting against, not necessarily the railway, but the overdevelopment of Tavistock. So the idea of the train line going into Plymouth is being used as a carrot, not to get people on a train line again, but to build the houses. The main purpose behind the whole object is to build 750 houses and make a killing on selling them. Obviously, they're not going to do that at the moment with a credit crunch, but in 3 or 4 years' time, they're going to be able to make that money back. If you took it to the other side of the town and you reopened the one to Exeter, that makes a lot more sense, because therefore you can then commute into London. It makes the commute to London there. You've got a proper international airport. People will more use that one. It's the actual link between Tavistock and Plymouth that doesn't make any sense to me. It looks like a pure incentive to me. The figures don't add up at all.
So nearly 50 years ago, Beeching may have got it right.
May well have done, yeah. I mean, the railway was open and it was closed for a reason. Maybe it wasn't commercially viable.
This is only the beginning of a long process. Kilbride's proposition has been welcomed by Devon County Council, who agreed to cooperate with them. But the planning application goes to West Devon Borough Council, who will of course take local interests into account.
Plymouth's that way, Tavistock's that way. Beeching decided we didn't need a railway between the two. Things have changed massively in the last 50 years, and it appears if you get 750 new houses, you can get a free railway. That's almost too good to be true. But does the railway go from the right place to the right place? You know, is it what Tavistock needs? Will it change Tavistock forever? I'm not so sure about that. And I suppose one of the big problems we have to decide is, do we need a railway between Plymouth and Tavistock, or does it need to go beyond?
The old Southern Line used to run from Tavistock to Exeter over this viaduct, which was the highest point on the Southern Railway at 900 feet above sea level. These are the epic views that welcome passengers on the inland route to the region. To the south, the wilds of Dartmoor, unmistakably rugged terrain and the prospect of a bit of weather never far away. Immediately to the north, rolling Devonshire pastures. Just beyond the viaduct, there's another section of the line still running. The Exeter to Oakhampton passenger route survived Beeching's axe, but with no onward connections, its days as a major junction are long gone. But the track also has another use, which has kept it alive all these years. 2 miles beyond Oakhampton lies Meldon Quarry, the source of much of the ballast that maintains railway tracks all over the country. Because of this, the 25-mile stretch from here to Exeter is kept in working order.
Meldon Quarry is the end of the line, and the aggregate that comes out of the quarry, it's used by the rest of Network Rail to booster up the line. And so this little bit of the Southern Line, which is kept alive by the quarry, is actually keeping the rest of Network Rail supplied.
This line has brand new owners, Iowa Pacific Holdings. Coincidentally, like Kilbride and Tavistock, they say community rail is high on their agenda. Both companies are responding to a national initiative for community rail, but nevertheless they are companies in it for profit and not concerned with overall transport strategy. A strategy that's very much needed here in the southwest, where rail problems are a constant. One of the quarry's best customers for track ballast is just down the line. Exeter is the junction with Brunel's coastal route, and just round the coast is the most romantic and troubled part of that line. There is a tricky 4-mile stretch which has suffered continual problems during the track's 160-odd years. Severe storms hammer the sea wall, overtopping when the sea gives the trains a bit of a wash, rock falls from the crumbling sandstone cliff, and to cap it all, rising sea levels too. But despite these problems, Network Rail are upbeat about the condition of both the line and its vulnerable sea wall.
As an engineer, having responsibility for one of Brunel's creations must be a real privilege.
Oh, it is, yes, and of course this is a beautiful part of the coastline and a real local feature.
The seawall itself looks in excellent condition now, doesn't it?
It is. I mean, we've got to say, really, it's been the best condition it's in now than it's ever been. Each generation has seen the problem, seen something happen, and put in mitigation measures and engineering to actually make the wall robust. So I would say now it is in a better condition than it has ever been, yeah. The key to the whole maintenance thing with this seawall is inspection. We can spot things going wrong before they actually go wrong, get the contractors in to fix it, and keep our wall in one piece. Brunel allegedly told the board of the Great Western Railway that it would cost no more to maintain than any other stretch of railway. In fact, he probably got that slightly wrong and smoked one of his famous cigars to the tunes of Bach.
It's hard to get a definitive cost for maintaining this track, but it adds up to millions over the decades. And in fact, there were problems right from Brunel's days. Within a year of opening, the wall suffered severe sea damage, which meant it had to be closed for repairs.
Brunel was always confident that there weren't any risks with his railways, and even if he had believed that the waves would touch his wall, he would still convince himself that in a battle between Brunel and nature, Brunel would always win.
I see, I'm on Brunel's side most of the time because being a man of vision, obviously he sort of decided he could do it. And that was the sort of the theme of the time, wasn't it? They can do anything.
Oh, yes, they'd never have built the railway system at all if they'd been overcautious men.
So the economics are coming through the towns, that makes sense. But he wasn't worried about the sea and the possible erosion.
No, he regarded it as unlikely that the railway would ever be troubled by the sea. And he probably only came here in the summer.
There is a difference in the winter, isn't there?
Yes, yes.
I was brought up knowing that Isambard King de Brunel was the greatest engineer the world has ever seen. The railway's still working, and 150 years on, I'm still using it to commute, so he got something right.
But there's a growing problem in the shape of the spit of land known as Dawlish Warren. It's eroding, and the sands are changing shape all the time. At the moment, it's crucial to the preservation of the track. If it goes, it'll expose the whole line along the Exe-estuary to the full force of the sea. The railway was never built to withstand such an onslaught. I've come to meet a man whose postgraduate studies are part funded by Network Rail. He's measuring just how much the sea and land levels are changing here.
It's actually a natural defence for the railway line up the estuary.
And how is it defending the coastline?
Just simply a barrier to the waves and the energy from the wind, etc., stopping all that energy rushing up the Exe-estuary and attacking the defences.
I assume it's been here for a while, so what's the worries?
Well, we've seen erosion of it during storms. Now, future sea level rise is just going to increase the amount that these storms can get over this barrier and break it.
OK, here we are, mate. What's your job? What are you doing to help us?
My job is to accurately estimate the amount of the land sinking down in the southwest.
Oh, come on, you're joking, mate. You must be taking a mickey. The southwest is sinking.
Well, it is subsiding.
The sea's coming up.
Yeah, as well. It's a relative sea level rise, so the land is sinking and the sea is rising. That's why the southwest is going to be impacted the most from future sea level rise.
No, who says? Come on, I don't know this. I did geography O level. Nobody talking about the southwest sinking.
Well, it is, and the data that they've actually got is not really that reliable, and that is my job.
All right, so what are you measuring?
I'm measuring how much the sea level has changed in the last 4,000 years.
Day measures changing land levels by taking core samples along the coast and examining where the old seabed used to lie.
We'd take a sample from here and we'd look for marine organisms that live at a specific height above sea level at present. So if we find them buried, then we know that that level there was at a specific height above sea level in the past.
So talk to me about how much land's subsiding.
Well, currently it's estimated at around 1.2 millimetres per year.
1.2, so just over a millimetre. Oh, how about sea levels coming up?
That's 2 to 3 millimetres per year.
it makes the problem an awful lot worse, doesn't it? It's 50% worse then.
Well, if it carries on going the way it is, yes.
And what is the threat to the railways in the region then?
Well, sea level rise will have a massive threat on the increase of flooding on the railway line and the possible closure.
You haven't got time to waste, mate. Keep digging holes.
I'll try.
Dave, thank you. Is anyone else worried? I know I am. But Network Rail aren't ignoring the problem.
The Environment Agency own the Warren, and we are working with them to look to the future of the Warren and what needs to be done to sustain it and the protection to the estuary.
The challenge of the coastal route isn't going to be getting easier for you, is it?
It's not going to be getting easier, no, but with regard to this route at the moment, we're looking to sustain this for a good number of years.
But from your perspective, the engineering challenges of being inland must be much easier than being on a coastal route.
As things stand at the moment, we have no plans to consider the inland route, but yeah, things might change miles into the future, we don't know.
So I'm confused. I've got one bloke telling me the sea level's rising, the land's falling, and it's only a matter of time before the route has problems. I've got another bloke saying the seawall's in the best condition it's ever been in, Dawlish has been saved, everything's all right. I don't think I'm being selfish, but I live in Cornwall, and I really do hope somebody, somewhere, has a backup plan. I met up with transport expert Dr. John Shaw at Exeter Station.
People are thinking about another route. Network Rail are thinking about it, local MPs are thinking about it, pressure groups are thinking about it, community groups are thinking about it, particularly in Plymouth and in Cornwall. But the government likes to file it in that drawer which says far too difficult, no, we don't want to worry about that. So, other route, no, sorry, don't need to worry about that. Plymouth, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. There's going to have to be a really catastrophic event to even get people to think, people that control the purse strings to think that a second route is going to be viable and possible.
So what's going on? We've got public-private partnerships and everything seems to be done piecemeal. Where's the big strategy?
Well, the Association of Train Operating Companies has put out a report recently where it's looking forward to 2057, and that shows a new bit of line between Oakhampton and Tavistock.
50 years?
50 years, yeah. I certainly doubt I'll be around to see it, but you know, the children might be and that kind of thing. But you're looking that far ahead, and
we've only got the bit between Meldon and Tavistock. You know, if we have community rail on one side, community rail on the other, there's not much left in the middle before you've got a second route, is there?
No, but it's an expensive bit of line to rebuild because it's across the moor. So there needs to be some kind of broader strategy. There's an army of people in the Department for Transport who constantly produce this barrage of strategy documents.
But no execution.
Exactly.
But to take that step from strategy to action costs money.
Yeah, it does, but we've got a lot of money. We're the fourth biggest economy in the world. It's how we prioritise our expenditure. These are political decisions. Now, if you regard transport as being important, then you will spend money on it.
It's frustrating. Living in Cornwall, I find the idea of more rail coverage so appealing. But clearly the way forward is not going to be easy. This is a beautiful cycle track, and it follows the route that Beeching cut. I'd be sorry to see it go, but how fantastic if one day we could get back a railway over the moors.
The use of the title Down the Line for this programme is by permission of Paul Whitehouse, who owns the title in connection with his award-winning Radio 4 series Down the Line.
Please visit our website for news about new productions that are on the way, and you can support my work on my Patreon page. Thank you.